Yes, the election now less than 3 weeks away. Advanced voting begins this Saturday. We're expecting a record number of New Zealanders to vote early, perhaps around 60%. Today, though, overseas voting begins. We know that the majority of New Zealanders living abroad reside in Australia to coincide with the opening of overseas voting. Jacinda Ardern has sat down with Sky News for a wide-ranging interview, making her pitch to those New Zealanders living overseas, saying if they desire certainty and stability for the country moving forward, they should vote for the Labor Party. We know for some time that Jacinda Ardern has taken issue with what she says are a fundamental lack of rights for New Zealanders who call Australia home. Yes, they have access to the JobKeeper program, but many unable to access welfare payments, student loans, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Here's the Prime Minister on that. Just back on those New Zealanders living in Australia, many move across the ditch in pursuit of a better life, to earn a higher wage, to enjoy better weather. But many don't have access to basic services such as welfare payments, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, student loans. Are New Zealanders in Australia getting a raw deal?
Yes, and you know, we've continued to raise that alongside a number of other issues that we've had concerns over.
You haven't had much. You've publicly pressed the case.
Yeah, I absolutely have. And while we've seen some minor tweaks around the edges, nothing that we would consider substantive. It's not going to stop me from raising it.
Do you admit you're powerless, though? You're not the Australian Prime Minister, you're the New Zealand Prime Minister.
If that somehow is suggesting that we shouldn't raise our voice in this, you know, this familial...
Our viewers may remember in February, at the start of the year, Jacinda Ardern in Sydney standing next to Scott Morrison, delivering a dressing down over the issue of deportation. The Prime Minister telling Sky News she stands by those comments. She still believes that the Australia-New Zealand relationship is being tested in the face of this rather prickly issue. But it hasn't prevented Jacinda Ardern and Scott Morrison from maintaining a professional, a productive relationship. Jacinda Ardern says they actually spoke on the phone last night, checking in, discussing the latest on the Trans-Tasman bubble.
Obviously, things are progressing. You know, there could be a chance that Australia could just determine that they're happy with New Zealand's status, and while we work through the way that they will operate their hotspot system, we may have New Zealanders travelling without quarantine on one side. And so things are moving, but again, our test is the same, and that is the safety of New Zealanders.
Peter, of course, the Prime Minister has said this week that she believes it's a possibility that Trans-Tasman travel between Australia, some Australian states and New Zealand is possible ahead of Christmas. So you might have to reserve me a spot at the table for Christmas lunch.
Sounds good to me, Jackson, as always. Thank you. That was an interesting chat. Well done on getting the Prime Minister too on our show. Jackson Williams.